Welcome csc200 class to EX3. This is 1982 Pirates Pitchers, and we're going to be working on creating a relational database, meaning we're going to have a database and we're going to have two tables, one that relates to the other, that have kind of a parent-child relationship. And what you're going to need from your My Warren page is going to be a SQL file. It could be zipped that you're going to download, and then you're going to import into PHPMyAdmin. So before we do that, we have to log in to Cloud9, and I'm going to log in over here. If you're not seeing your typical login, make sure you hit that button. I'll log in as my student account. And when you come into your workspaces, you want to make sure that you open up your csc200 workspace. And you may see this little bash thing, this terminal window that's open here. If it's not open, I'm going to close it up because I want to go through this again. I'm going to close this. And you might just see something like this, just a tab here, an empty tab, or one with just a plus sign to add a tab. And what you want to do is you want to go to Window and say New Terminal. And it'll have this kind of empty kind of prompt here. It'll have the $sign, and what you want to type in is PHPMyAdmin, and then a dash control CTL, and then a space, and just install, not start, but install. And then just hit return, and it'll kind of run through its process of starting the MySQL. And it'll also display a URL that you can open up PHPMyAdmin. It'll even show your username. You don't need a password, so you can log in without a password. And I'm going to click on this link here, and I'm just going to say open, so that it opens up in a new tab. And here's my main screen in PHPMyAdmin. And here's my databases. There's the last one I did, the Pirates 1982. This one is going to be called Pirates 1982 Pitchers. So I'm going to go back to My Warren, and I'm going to download this. And this is what it would look like. And you could just let it download into your, you could click on it and just let it download into your downloads if you want. Or you could right click and download it into your csc200 folder if you have one. I'm just going to download it. And I think I downloaded one before. Now, you don't have to double click on it and open it or anything. You could just leave it in your downloads, and then you could import it from there if you want. Or, like I said, you could download it into a file so that you have all these together so that you know where they are. Although you can always download them again. And now I'm going to go back to PHPMyAdmin, and I'm going to import that database. So to do that, I'm going to go to Import. And I'm going to choose File. And here it is. I did it before, so this is the one that I into my downloads. I have my downloads on my Mac set up to be date modified, so the newest one is on top. So I'll click on that one, the one without the number 1, and hit open. And now that I chose it, I want to scroll down and just hit go. You don't have to change any other settings, and you want to see green. Green is good in PHPMyAdmin. You have a little checkbox, and there's our database. It has a dash pictures on it, so that's good. That's what you want to see. And if you click on it, you can see that there's a table for players, and we're going to add a table for pitchers. So if you click on players, you'll see the database here. You'll see that there's 28 total entries or records that are in here of players, and I did add a column called position, POS, all capitals. And notice that there's ID, lowercase, there's first with a capital F, last with a capital L, and POS is all capitals. We have to know that when we write our queries, and even when we create columns in other tables. So just be aware of that now, so you don't have to go back and forth or open it up again. So this is our players table, and we're going to make like a subtable of just pitchers from this. So it'll be what's called a relational database. So the pitchers table will be related because they'll share the same ID number, and they'll share all the same names and stuff. We're going to import them in, but they'll be related to it. It'll be kind of a parent-child relationship. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to the database. So I'll click right on the database, and right away it asks if you want to create a table, and that's exactly what we want to do. And we're going to call it pitchers. And we're going to use lowercase because that's the way we were doing it with players. So I'm going to call it pitchers, and we're just going to put 3 columns for now. Just going to keep this real simple as we kind of learn this process, because there's a lot of kind of steps to it that can be a little complicated. So it's just 3 columns. We're only going to have an ID, first name, and last name. That's all we're going to have in this table. And we're only going to have the pitchers, although we'll add some more. We may add another table to it as well. So that's all we want right now. And now we're going to create our second table, and I'll hit go. And before you create a table, they need to know what columns. So we need to put our columns in here, and I'm going to make one called ID, exactly the same as our players. And we're also going to have first, exactly the same as players, capital F, and last. And then for ID, we're going to use integer, because that's what we used before, and I'm going to put 11 because that's kind of the default. And make sure you do this, because I forgot it the one time and I had to start over. So make sure this is varchar or varchar, both of these. And you could put in 33. I don't think it matters that much what number you put in there, but I think that's what I used on the other one. So you're going to put in varchar. Make sure that they're going to show up as text files or as characters in there and not numbers. And the only other thing that you really have to put in here is if you scroll over this way where it has index, if you just put unique, in some tutorials they'll tell you to make this index, but we're going to make that unique. So that's all. You don't have to do this. I know typically you have to do that when you're creating it to start. You're making an auto increment, but we're not going to do that because we already have it generated originally from our main table. So this is our child table that we're working on here. So now that we have this set up with ID first and last, integer varchar 11 33 33, and then making sure we have this index set up to be unique, what we're going to do is just hit save. And it worked so far. We have a pitchers table, and there it is. There's nothing in it. You can see rows. It says there's nothing in it. There's 0 rows in it. So if we click on this, if we click on it over here, we have nothing. Empty result, 0 rows, because we didn't put anything in there, and we're going to have to do that. So before we do that, though, we're going to go to structure, and we're going to set up our foreign key. And we have to do that basically in relation view. That makes it a relational database. So we'll go to relational view or relation view. And what should show up here is you should have a place to put your foreign key if you did it correctly. And this little drop down here, you could just use whatever's here. I'm just going to use pitchers ID for now. And then for the foreign key, you want to make sure you get it from the players, because this is the parent that you're getting from. So this is the important one. That other drop down isn't as important. This is important that you use the player's ID. And then you can also make sure you do this. For us, we want to do cascade for now, so that whatever changes we make kind of cascades from parent to child. You don't have to put constraint name because it'll put one in automatically. And for index here, you could just put the pitchers in here is fine. If you just want to use that little drop down and just put pitchers in, it's not imperative that you do that, but if you put that in, that way it's all kind of consistent. It kind of helps PHPMyAdmin, I believe, this stuff here, because it's the internal relation. So that's all you have to do there. You don't have to put choose column to display as far as what we're doing right now. So that should be it. Just make sure that you have your foreign key here and it's using the player's ID. The pitchers is the one we're using. So we're working, again, we're in the pitchers table. We're working on the child, and it's going to be related to the parent. So I'm going to hit save. And you shouldn't see much go on, except it just says everything's okay. So if you still go back to pitchers, you're still not going to see anything because there's nothing in there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to import. It's not really importing, but we're going to use a query to bring in all the players that are pitchers into this. Now, how do we do that? Well, I'm going to go to W3 Schools, and in our SQL tutorial in W3 Schools, we're going to scroll down to the one called SQL Insert into Select. Now, why that one? Well, that's the one that actually says it copies data from one table and inserts it into another table. That's exactly what we want. And the process is simple. You insert into pitchers table from the players table, and the condition is going to be position equals pitcher, however we have that set up. And if you scroll down, you'll find some sample code so that you could just copy it. You don't have to, we could kind of use the structure that they have here. And I'm just going to highlight this text. It's this one down here with Germany down towards the bottom of the page. And I'll just copy that. You could use Control-C or Command-C. And I'll go back to here, and I'm going to run a query. So I have to use SQL to run a query. And I'm just going to highlight over this and paste this in here just exactly the way it came from W3 Schools. Now you could change this. Now obviously what's going to change, we're not using customers, we're using pitchers, because that's the table that we're inserting into is pitchers, and make sure you spell it right. And these things in here, if it just for the first time, if you want to just take them out and then put ID and then put a comma, you got to put commas in between here, and then first, and then put another comma, and then last. And then the same thing, you could even highlight these three things, and I'm going to replace them right over this supply name, city, and country, and paste them in there. So the same thing's in there. So, and where are we selecting from? We're selecting from players. Lowercase, just as the name of the table is. And we're not doing anything with country equals Germany. We're using position, POS, because that's the way we had it set up. And then we're using P. And that's all we should need. And we should be able to run our query. Now, if you're worried about losing this or anything, just highlight it and copy it. So if you have any issue, you could always paste it again. But if you have that set up, I'm going to hit go, and we'll see what happens. And this is what you want to see for success. You want to see 12 rows inserted. And you want to go and look at your pictures, and hopefully you'll see 12 pictures there. And there they are. And if you had any issue where it wouldn't show you this edit, copy, delete stuff, sometimes if you don't use that unique that we did initially, it'll have a little message and it says you don't have something unique. And if you just go back to your structure and make it unique, it'll put this back. But this is exactly what we want. And again, what I wanted to show from this, and we'll add a little bit onto it, but with our pictures table, what I want to point out is that, just for example, now that I have how many here? I have 12 total. Let's say I get rid of Ross Baumgarten and I want to delete him. So I could just go here and delete. So I'm going to delete him from my, and you could do this too. Just make sure it's the last guy, number 30 and ID number 39. And I'm going to delete him. If I delete him from pictures, and I'll hit OK, he's gone from pictures. But if I go to players, he should still be there. I should scroll down and see item number or ID number 39, and Ross Baumgarten is still there because he hasn't been removed from the players. He's only been removed from pictures. Pictures is a child of parent, so he's been removed from the child list, but he's still in the parent list. However, if I decide to remove, let me go back to this one, and I'll just use the last guys. This will be easier to remember. Here's Paul Moscow, and if we want to get rid of him, let's say the other guy's got on the DL or something, so he's not one of the active pitchers. But let's say Paul Moscow, let's say we just want to get rid of him. We're cutting him. So we're going to players, and he's getting cut as a player. So if I went down here, now we could use SQL queries to do this, but we're going to just use our tools in here. If I got rid of Paul Moscow, and I hit OK, because I deleted him from the parent table, if I go to pitchers, he's going to be removed from there too. I won't see Paul Moscow there too, because if he was part of the child table, he's going to be, and I took him out of the parent, he's going to be gone. So that's how relational databases work, and that's how these tables kind of relate together, so that one is kind of a child of the parent. So I'm going to take a break here, and we're going to try to just do one more in part 2. We'll just do one more, just so you get some practice of doing this.